What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be starting a new challenge with my trading account. It is currently sitting at $190,000, and the goal for me over the next year is to turn this into over $1 million. I know it sounds insane, but earlier this year I was able to turn $65,000 into that $190,000. That's a 209.45% return over the course of roughly 3 to 4 months in a strong market. But my thought process is, if in 2026 I can get maybe 6 to 8 good months out of the market, that a 500% return is by no means out of the question. And no, that wasn't just luck on a couple of stocks. That was over the course of 100 plus trades using a very technical and methodical system that I've been trying to showcase to all of you guys. So the goal with this is to be as transparent as possible with all of you, as well as to hold myself accountable to my own trading rules. And I really want to show you guys that it is possible to make these kinds of returns on your account. And that if I'm able to do it, then so can you. So like I said, the goal for this is to complete this in under 1 year. By December 31st, 2026, I want my trading account to be at $1 million. So in order to hold me accountable during this time, I'm going to be creating a new video every 2 weeks to kind of summarize everything that has happened over the past 2 weeks. I'm going to be going through all the trades I took, any stocks I might have exited, how I've been managing these positions. And I hope to be able to encapture all of my thought processes of why I'm doing things, why I might have entered a stock, the criteria I used when evaluating different stocks, why I exited a stock, how I'm managing these positions, why certain stocks are working, why certain stocks might have failed, and some of the lessons I'm learning over this time period. And if you guys want to do this with me, I have a private Discord access that's available through my website that will be linked down in the description. I'm only allowing 50 people into the Discord, and I'm going to be calling out every stock that I ever buy and sell live. So hopefully, if you do decide to join me on this journey, we will be able to make a hell of a return this year on our trading accounts. Now, there's one caveat to starting this challenge in this current time, December 2025. Right now, the market's in a bit of a bearish transition, right? We recently, over the last couple of weeks, turned into a bear market. Now, a bear market, for those of you that don't know, or a potential, I guess you could say a potential bear market. And a bear market, for those of you that don't know, at least what I consider to be a potential trend reversal into a bear market, is when the 10-day simple moving average falls below the 20-day simple moving average on indexes like SPY or QQQ, so basically the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. Now, in previous times, it has been a very strict rule of mine to not trade during this time and to just stay cash. But a lot of the stocks that have been showing up on my custom scanners are actually still making really good moves. And a lot of times these stocks are stocks that set up based on the criteria that I would normally enter a position on. So I've been getting a bit of FOMO, I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of felt like I've been losing out on some opportunity there. So I'm gonna be trading during this time, but I'm gonna be doing it in a very light manner. I'm only gonna be risking 0.25% of my account to 0.5% of my account per trade. So my position sizes are gonna be anywhere from 5 to 10% of my total account balance per position. So I still have good potential to make, a solid return on my account during a time when the market might be choppy. So a second reason I'm also starting to trade during this market sell-off is that I really wanna catch the bottom of this slight pullback that we're in. A lot of the stocks that show up on my scanners and set up in a way that my criteria defines them, they end up exploding off the bounce. Some of them will rally a couple 100%. And the thought process is, if I can break even to maybe making 10% on my total account value during this time, that I'll catch a few of those really fast runners in the early months of 2026 off this bounce, and it'll propel me even faster towards that $1 million mark. So like I said, this is day 1 of this challenge. I'm gonna start building out my focus watch list. Focus watch list is basically gonna be the stocks that are the most set up and are ready to basically break out. I'm gonna use the 3 custom scanners that are all available on my website and actually through the Discord for a little bit of a discount. That's gonna be the 1-month custom scanner, 3-month, and 6-month custom scanner. What these custom scanners search for is the top 1 to 2% of market leaders. So that is going to be basically the top 1 to 2% stocks in the stock market that have gone up the most over those 3 time periods. This is gonna take me a little bit, so I'm gonna do it off camera, build out my focus watch list, and then we will go over all these stocks I chose and why I chose them. So I just went through the scanners and I was able to come up with roughly 10 stocks that somewhat meet my criteria. There's a couple of them that I'm just going to be kind of keeping an eye on to see whether or not they end up building a support off of our moving averages. But I'm going to go over the best ones with you guys and kind of go over my thought processes looking at them, why I'm watching them, and what my criteria was when choosing them. So before we get into the stock scanner results and what stocks I came up with, if you guys draw your attention to the bottom part of my chart here, you guys know I love building custom tools for my thinkorswim setup, and I actually built a custom position size calculator for everyone out there and for myself. So this will actually calculate how many shares of stock you should buy based on your risk allocation, how much percentage of risk you're willing to allocate. So if I actually click here and I go to edit studies, you'll see I have position size allocation here, and you can actually input your account size, so however many dollars you have in your account, and your risk percentage. I'm going to change mine real quick to 0.5 because obviously for current market conditions I'm only going to be risking 0.5% per trade. But this will do all the math for you when it comes to risk management. Again, I always recommend never risking more than for smaller accounts, 2% of your total account value per trade. And in market conditions like the ones we're in right now, which I'll show you real quick, obviously we're declining, but we're seeing a slight bounce, right? I wouldn't even risk more than 1% on small accounts and 0.5% on larger accounts like mine. But yeah, you guys can go ahead and get your hands on this scanner if you come to my website and you go to custom tools. Come on down to custom position size calculator, and you can also get your hands on any of the other custom tools I have built, like my scanners, my ADR study, my volume study. And if you like the way my thinkorswim workspace looks like, you guys can get your hands on that. And then obviously I have my mini course PDF. Don't judge me on this thumbnail. I'm working on it. I'm a busy man. But I put together a 50-page mini course PDF that goes over the entire strategy from start to finish, risk management, and how to calculate your position sizes, the higher-low formula, how to identify ranges, etc., etc. Everything I'm kind of going over in these videos, but in paper form, and you guys can go look back at it when you're trying to study for your trading and when you're actually actively taking trades. I also have a 50 perfect breakout setup PDF that has 50 of the perfect breakout setups that occurred this year. So you guys can actually use this to perfect your pattern recognition skills. This is something that is crucial when it comes to trading the stock market. Pattern recognition is basically everything. You have to be able to identify these setups, and this is perfect, right? If you get this, you guys can refer back to it before you take a trade to see if there's any stocks in the past that have looked like the one you're currently looking at. I don't know. I don't see how there's anything like better than this. No one out there that's trading like this has put together something like this for you new traders to use and learn off of. So this is available on my website. I'll have the website linked in the description below. If you guys want to get your hands on it, feel free. I also just put together a Discord where you guys are going to be able to get access and excuse this needs to be fixed, will be fixed, but you guys can get access to this, and you guys can trade alongside with me. You guys can get access to one-on-one mentoring from myself, excuse me, and I'll have a lot more private content on there. I have all of my custom tools on there for free, so the ADR scanner all the way through my actual stock scanners themselves. Obviously, you're getting a pretty sweet deal on it, $100 a month, rather than paying for each one separately. That price is going to go up once we get a certain amount of members. I'm only going to let 50 people in to start because I want to be able to give you guys that one-on-one time, and I can't manage 100 plus people, 200 plus people to start. I'm going to need help with that. So I got a few things in the works, but to start, I'm only going to let 50 in. So if you guys do want this opportunity, feel free to join this here. This access will be live in a couple of days, hopefully pretty soon after this video gets uploaded. But yeah. Okay, so you guys can see here on my screen that I have a focus watch list here. This is where I will take any stocks when I'm going through my scanners and throw them into this. And this is the watch list I look at every day that I'm trading. when I have any stocks on it. That means I'm going to be looking at them in the morning, and all I have to do is pull up this focus watch list for. It's a lot simpler than obviously going through the scanners at 9:30 and remembering stock names or something, right? You got to use a watch list. So I use a focus watch list where I throw all of my good stocks. And so this first one here is stock ticker AXTI. As you guys can see, it has a 20-day ADR percentage of 12.3. So that checks one box, which is super nice. So you guys can also see that the EMA says that the average volume is roughly 3 million shares per day. And when you multiply that by the stock price of $10.78, I'm just going to use 11 because it's going to be a lot cleaner for my brain. It's about 33 million daily dollar volume average. And for my current account value of 190,000, if you multiply that times 75, you get roughly 15 million. So that checks box number 2. Okay, so we checked out the ADR and the average daily dollar volume, and both of those met our criteria. So I was good there. To be honest, my scanner scanned for this anyways, so I really don't even have to check it because they've never been wrong. But it's always good to double check and make sure you know what you're looking at. Moving into the actual chart setup and the price action itself, you can see that we have clear a clear ascension, right? And it's a gradual ascension. So we have a multi 100% move over the course of the last 4 months, right? 500%. And then, as you know, the market has been over the last couple months. Things got choppy, but this stock held up way better than some of the other ones I've looked at. And as it made its peak here on relatively high volume, you can see that the stock pulled back in an orderly fashion, right? Even found a little bit of support here for a couple of days on the 10-day simple moving average, all on low volume, which is the biggest key, right? And even this pretty large red candle was fairly low volume in comparison to when it was making its peak. So that checks box number 3, right? It starts building this range on a pullback and had low volume while doing so. And then it ultimately, in recent times, the last 5 days, 6 days, it pulled back all the way to the 20-day simple moving average on low volume. Yes, we did have this one higher than I would love to see volume, but it's still low in comparison to when it made its peak. And then it starts building support off of this 20-day simple moving average. And the key when it starts building support off of this 20-day simple moving average is that it starts building higher lows. Again, all on low volume. Like even this big, large green candle, which you could have used as an entry, to be honest, with how my strategy works. I kind of missed this, even though the volume was pretty low. So probably not the best entry, but it could have been an entry because of how expanded the candle got off of this these couple of higher lows that were built. But we're gonna disregard that. In this kind of market, we want to choose the most prime, best entries we can. So I wouldn't have taken that anyways because the volume wasn't there clearly. But it's obviously building higher lows. We're kind of in a range here now. So I'm just going to wait for this. I'd like to see this stock have a few more days going sideways, let the moving averages catch back up to the price, maybe even flutter between the two, and have then ultimately an inside day. So an inside day, for those of you that don't know, would be a day like this small day here, where the stock price stayed within the previous day's stock price, and price action was tight, volume was tight. So I'd like to see a few more days, and then one of those days, and then ultimately from there, I want to see the stock break out. Depending on the volume, I will take an entry on this stock if it does end up breaking this high. I'd need to see high volume though, and I'd much prefer this stock to have the moving averages catch up to it, and like I just said, have that inside day and then break out. So that's it for this stock. Yeah, pretty easy to spot, right? This pattern is pretty simple. So this is another stock here that I found when going through my scanners. Another pretty good setup. You can see it's building higher lows off of our 20-day simple moving average here. One thing I would prefer not to see on this stock is these large wicks on top of these two candles here, right? On the high, it's fine, but the fact that price action ended up falling down to the 10, it's just, I don't like these gaps, right? I like to see price stay tight in a range. Obviously, it is still kind of in this range here, but I don't like the wicks, I'm going to be honest. That's the only downside to this setup that I see. But the volume, okay, another downside, sorry, I meant to mention this. The gaps here in the uptrend, obviously this was like a 100% move, a little less. in about a week or two. I prefer for a more gradual move, but this was during the time of when the market was like super bullish. I'm not against this necessarily. I do need to see, like, this is one I won't really make exceptions on an entry. I'm going to need to see this range kind of pop up, come back down, and then trickle a little bit to the going sideways. And again, that same thing I said, low volume while all this is happening, and then I want to see that inside day ultimately up in here, this area where my mouse is right now, with the moving averages all caught up, and then a breakout on high volume. Now, that being said, would I take an entry if we have an inside day tomorrow and then we have high volume? I might take a light entry. That would be a quarter of a percent of risk on my account. So a very, very small entry. And then maybe even add if price ends up looking really good in a couple days or a week. But that's kind of my thought process on this. I like how tight the volume got ever since it made this previous breakout from this range here. So I threw it on the watch list, just going to keep an eye on it. Yeah, that checks that one out. Okay, moving on to stock number 3. This is ticker symbol GSAT. I really like this setup. You can see here, contrary to the previous stock we just talked about, BW, the stock made a high, and we don't have those large wicks, right? Price stayed tight to the high, pulled back towards the 10-day on low volume compared to its peak here. You see this volume, look how tight the volume got after it made its peak. That's prime. Found support on the 10-day, lost the 10-day, bounced immediately off the 20, and is now finding it bounced today off the 20 again, finding support on the 20 on super low volume. So what I want to see from this one, if we have a super tight day tomorrow, that would be great, and then a breakout day the next day. If we have 2 tight days in a row and then a breakout day, or even if it broke out tomorrow, I would prefer to get a little bit higher in the range in terms of where price is and the moving average is caught up to it. It's something that we can't control, obviously. You can't control when these stocks make their move, but that's what I would prefer. I want to see price maybe trickle tomorrow upwards a little bit. Price action stay pretty tight, but go make a new high from today's high, and then maybe trickle down a little bit the next day, and then ultimately break out, right? Trickle down into that support, then ultimately break out. But I really like this setup. The volume's super tight. Again, I'm not going to go over the dollar volume and ADR for every stock, but they all check out. I did the math. But yeah, prime setup on GSAT. I really like this one, so hopefully this one gives us the move we like. Okay, our 4th stock that we found while in the stock scanning process was GPCR. Now, this is a therapeutical company. This is something that I sometimes don't enjoy trading because of how volatile they can be. But as you can see, it has had a very gradual run up from its low, up to a peak, about 155% move over the course of 4 or 5 months. So it's a very gradual move, and it's something that made me a little more inclined to maybe take a trade on this stock. But the setup itself is A+, right? We obviously have a peak up here and then immediately get into this low volume. The only thing I don't like about the volume is, of course, this day here. A little bit higher than I would like, but in comparison to when it's making its peaks, it is much lower, right? So I do really like this setup because the majority of the volume is low, and we're really in this tight range here. We're putting in higher lows after higher lows on the 20-day. And I like how caught up the price action is to the simple moving average. And if you take this level of support, because obviously you cannot draw a range off of this high, right? This is a crazy wick. I don't know what happened on this day, if there was news or what. But if you draw the wick off of here, there's so many touch points to it, right? So that's a clearly defined range. And basically, all I'm looking for on this one, I'd be happy if it broke out tomorrow. You know, if you see price action leaning towards the higher end of the range tomorrow morning, it opens up on the higher end of today's candle, maybe around 35.50 and even higher. If it opens outside of the range, even better. If we have an inside day tomorrow, that's also totally fine. So I like this setup. That's why I took it. And yeah, checks out. And lastly, we're going to go over the ticker LMND, Lemonade Incorporated. This is a stock I've been watching for a while now. Unfortunately, I missed this trade here, and it kind of got a little choppy outside of here. But disregard some of these trend lines. I like to draw ranges on stocks when I see them in them, just to see if I can get a leg up out of them, and then a pullback into the moving averages that setup to with the setup we're seeing right now. But we can obviously see that from this low here, we made roughly a 75% move over the course of a couple of weeks. So that's a good, that's a fairly gradual move. Obviously, we had a very large day here. This must have been some news. Volume was crazy on it. So not the best setup that we are going to go over today, but I like that it's building these strong higher lows off of the 20-day simple moving average. And in comparison to its high volume days, disregarding this obvious like news day, but if you look at some of these days here, volume's relatively low while it's in this range. Obviously, we had a day here. Not sure what happened that day. I could check. I probably will check. But there was probably some sort of news either for the overall market or for the stock itself. But again, I like seeing these higher lows being built off this 20-day. This is one that I would say is like on the lower tier of the stocks that we're kind of going over that really meet our criteria. But I'd like to see it pull back into this 10 and 20-day simple moving average, kind of trickle up off it, have a couple tight days with tight volume, making higher lows, and then ultimately come out of this range, break this trend line I have here, and then on the day of the breakout, high volume, obviously, and a movement to the upside. And if you're wondering why we didn't go over every stock in the watch list, I threw a couple on here like this. You see, obviously, it's making a very clean, gradual move up the moving at a 10-day simple moving average, but it's not there yet, right? This is a stock. I have actually another watch list I usually throw these into called Watching. So it's just stocks that are like setting up to, they had an orderly pullback, basically. And then I'm waiting for that support to be built, that range to be built, those higher lows to be built. I want to see the low volume in that range, right? I'm waiting for all of that to happen before I actually throw it, usually into the focus. I threw them into the focus because right now there's really no stocks I'm watching, and I only have a few stocks in my focus list. So I'm going to focus on those 5 that I told you about. Those are really going to be the only ones I will take a trade on, because the other ones in here all look like this. But I wanted to give you an idea of how I'm thinking through this building out my watch list. I'm obviously putting some on there that on my other watch list that aren't quite there but are starting to set up, right? So you got to have, you can have 2 watch lists, one for the ones that are like ready to go or waiting on the breakout essentially, or a couple days of sideways action, then the breakout, and then you can have a watch list like I usually do, where I will throw some stocks on there that are maybe going to set up in the future that for our strategy. And just to flex real quick, this is some of the success I had over the last couple of months. Obviously, I've shown you guys a 200, I need to update this, but it's a 209% return on my investment. And these are some of the days I've seen. In October, I made $45,000. I had a month where I made $84,000, and right now my total profits are looking at $142,000, starting from $65,000. So really successful. This includes my Roth IRA, where I take some trades, so that's why my trading account's at 190, not 207 or whatever it is. But for the most part, my Roth IRA is allocated to ETFs, but it also, I take some of these trades in there as well. So I'm including that in my profits and losses. Boohoo. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. That's also going to be down in the description below. That is going to wrap up this trading video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments below, and I'm going to be happy to answer them. And then on top of that, you guys can join the Discord and get access to me 24/7, and I'll be there to answer any questions you guys might have.